Hello folks, welcome to another part in this Call of Duty style loadout tutorial. And today we're going to set up our weapon database and datasets so we can store our weapon info for our loadout scene to get the information from. And we're going to use this datasets to populate our scene when the loadout is utilized. So let's get started. First, we're going to create a new folder inside of our loadout system and name this datasets. Now, there's two ways to do this weapon loadout system. Either you can create one full data table and then you can populate it with every single weapon, lethals, tacticals, perks, and everything you have, and you can actually set up a class. Or you can have specific data tables set up for weapons, a specific one for lethals, and a separate one for tacticals and such. And we're going to do the second way of getting things done. We're going to have a separate database for weapons, a separate database for lethals, and such, just to keep it all separate and nice and organized. This would be much more easier to expand in the future rather than having one full data table with large amount of content in there. Because the downside of a data table is that the more and more data you have in the data table, the slower it gets when it gets to loading. So if you were to separate all of your information into multiple data tables, it would be much faster and beneficial for your game. So to get started, first I'm going to create a folder and name this weapons. Inside of this weapons, we're going to create a new structure. And this structure will be s_weapon info. And we're going to go in here and add in a variable. The first variable is going to be name, would be of type name. This will be the name of the weapon. The second variable would be the mesh. Because this is a weapon, it's going to definitely have a mesh. I'm selecting a static mesh here. In your game, you would select a scalable mesh if you're going to be using a scalable mesh for your weapons. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to use static. It works the exact same way as a scalable mesh. The only difference is static mesh cannot play any animation, while the scalable mesh can play animations and stuff. We're going to have a portrait. This would be of type texture 2D. We're going to have a weapon class. This weapon class will determine what type of weapon this is. So we need a list for this. And usually if you want to create a list, enumerations will be the best way to create a list. We're going to name this e_weapon class. Open this up. And the classes would be, first class would be assault rifle. Second one would be SMG for submachine gun. Third one is going to be for LMG. Then we have shotguns. Sniper rifle. This should be good for now. Again, SMG and LMG, I'm just making it short just to maintain short characters. We don't want larger characters in the game. Even assault rifle and sniper rifle is rather large as well, but this should be good to fit into the screen. If it needs to look good, we could always come back and remove these rifles from this list. We can go ahead and now go back to our S-weapon info, go to the weapon class, and then select the new E-weapon class enumeration that we just created. We can go ahead and press save. This is the information that we need for now, but then as we need more and more information, we're going to come and modify this structure. We can go ahead and close this. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a data table. If I search for data table, I have a data table. And then for this, we're going to select our S-weapon info data as our structure, and then name this DT_weapon data. Open this up, add in a new row. And immediately you can start populating this. The name of this weapon, we're going to name this AK-74 or AK-47. You would name it based on your game preference. And then again, I'm going to go here and I think the mesh is called KA-74. Okay. So that will be the mesh. The portrait, we're going to take portraits of the actual weapons in just a moment. But let's go ahead and start filling up the rest. This would be an assault rifle. I'm going to create a couple more and start populating one for each class. Okay, so I have went ahead and I populated a weapon for each and every single mesh here. Now, one thing that I immediately notice is that you will notice that the weapon is facing here to the right, but if I select the sniper rifle, it's facing to the left. So we need to set it up so that when the weapon gets populated on the table, they're all facing the same direction. Now, this poses a new issue for us to fix. This all the models that you're downloading, if you're not getting it from the same creator, then you're going to have problems like these, where the weapons will get spawned in rather large, small, or in different orientation and such like that. To make it all stable, we need to go through one weapon at a time. I know it's a little longer process. There's no one solution to blanket it all, but we're going to go through weapon by weapon. And then we need to set this to a proper scale and also the location. And then we need to record that location into our weapon structure. And then when it spawns in, we're going to set up that weapon transform based on the actual. So the sniper is a great example. Right now, our rotation is all set to 0, so it's looking the right direction, but then the location is wrong, and also the scale is really, really wrong. So now I'm going to quickly resize the sniper and move its location so it is in the optimal location on top of the table where we want to see it. So we want our sniper to be in this position. And we know that each weapon, if we change the model, it's going to be in a completely different location. So what we want to do now, in our sWeapon info, I'm going to add a new variable and name this weapon transform and make this of type transform. Now, when you press save in your data table, now under weapon transform, you actually get a little arrow. Here, you can actually set up the location, rotation, and the scale. Back in our loadout scene, I'm going to go ahead on the location. I'm going to right click on copy, go to our data table, and then go ahead and paste it. That will remember the location. Same thing for the rotation, which is at 0, so we don't need to copy it. And for the scale, we need it to be 0.1. And I'm going to paste it here in our scale. So now when this specific sniper spawns into the game, it's going to set up in this location and this scale. We need to unfortunately do this for every single weapon that we have in the game. So I'm going to go quickly fast forward and then get everything done. So I have done it for every single weapon type. And now we're going to go back to our dataset folder and then create a new folder, and this would be for perks. Inside of this perks, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have a structure. This would be s_perks. We're going to have a enumeration as well. This would be e_perk class. For now, for the enumeration, we're just going to name it class 1, 2, 3. But in your game, you can classify the class under different type, like an offense class, defense class, special class, and all of those. But for us, for the purpose of this tutorial, we just need 3 classes to set up one bag. We have 3 bags in our scene. Each bag will be a different class, and then we're going to put a picture or a portrait on top of it. To do that in our structure, first we're going to go ahead and make our perk name. This will be of type name, and then the second variable would be our portrait. This would be of type texture 2D. Object reference. And then we will have the class. This would be our enumeration that we just created, ePerk class. We're going to be setting up a widget on top of these bags, and then we're going to switch the perk picture on the widget. So once we create the widget, we're going to come back here and add in a transform so we can get the location of that widget and we can place our perks on top of it. But for the time being, I'm going to leave this empty. This is all we need. We're going to go ahead and then right click and create a data table. Perks, press OK. This would be dt_perk data. Now we're going to go ahead and add 3 lines. I'm going to do one for each class. So class 1, this is going to be health perk. For class 2, it's going to be stamina. Class 2. And here for class 3, I'll name it like armor. Right? Again, you'll populate your each class with as many perks as you would like, and then you can switch the perks around as you would like as well. I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and then now we're going to go back into our data set and then create a new folder. This will be for our lethals. We're going to do another structure for our lethals, s_lethals. We're going to open up our lethals, and we're going to set up our name first. And the lethals actually has a static mesh. So we're going to put in a mesh, make this of type static mesh, object reference. And the lethal will also need to have a portrait. This would be of text type texture 2D. And the lethals will also require a transform. So this would be lethals transform. This would be of type transform. Go back to our content drawer. We're not going to use an enumeration for class because lethals does not have a specific class. You have like frag grenade, then you have your Semtex, C4. They don't have a specific class. Lethals is the class. So I'm going to go ahead and then not create enumeration for this. We're going to create a data table here. Select our lethals as our data table. Then press OK. This would be DT underscore lethals data. In here, I'm going to add like 2 of them. First one is going to be, oh, did I make a mistake? Instead of name, it's set to Boolean. So I'm going to go save, change that and save. And now I should have the name of it. This would be our smoke grenade. I'm sorry, our frag grenade. And this would be of type frag. Oh, grenade, I guess. Yeah, grenade right there. And our lethal's transform right now, if I look at my scene, the lethal already has a transform. So I'm just going to copy this. So I'm going to shift and right click to copy and then shift and left click to paste. Same thing here. There's no rotation. The scale is set to 1. So I'm going to set that scale here as 1 as well, which is set to 1. The second one, I'm going to, again, look for a grenade. What do I have here? I have a different type of grenade. I think I can't remember what the name of this grenade is. So I'm just going to call it stick grenade. It looks like a stick and a grenade on it. Again, we're going to have to go into the scene, bring in that grenade, and then see how it looks. Of course, it looks rather large. So we're going to size it to how we would like. There you go. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to now, again, shift right click to copy and then shift left click to paste. Same thing here, shift right click to copy the rotation, paste it here, and then shift right click to get the scale, shift left click to paste it here. That's it for our lethals. Again, you will add more and more lethals here, and then you would place it in your scene and then check to see exactly where it is. And then you would copy and paste its transform here. We can go ahead and close out our lethals. Next is our tacticals. We're going to create a new folder for tacticals. Open up the tacticals. We're going to create a structure. S underscore tacticals info. We're going to open this up. Again, just like lethals, this is going to have a name, which would be our tactical name. And then it's also going to have a mesh, which would be of type static mesh. Next would be of our type, for our picture, we need a portrait. And this would be our texture 2D. Yeah, there you go. Tactical transform. This would be of type transform. Feel free to add as many of these variables as possible if you need that in your game, in your structure, and then populate it. I'm only making the basic. Here, for our tacticals, we're going to create a data table. Again, we don't need an enumeration because tacticals are just tacticals. They don't have specific class of tacticals. I'm going to press I'm going to set tacticals and then say DT underscore tacticals data. Open this up. Add in like 2 rows. I think I only have a smoke grenade. So let me check. So I'm going to name this smoke grenade. And the transform, I believe I already have the transform here set up from our previous tutorial. So I'm going to shift right click to copy, shift left click here. I have a stun grenade. So that would be our next one. Stun grenade, and this would be of type stun grenade. Go back into my scene. Here, I'm going to replace this with my stun grenade. See how it will look. Can't really see it. Let's reset the scale first. Okay, so there you go. This looks really good. I'm going to leave everything else as it is, and then I'm just going to get this stun grenade as it is. So again, shift and right click to copy this. There you go. And we're going to create a new folder, and this is going to be for melee weapons. Again, right click, structure, s underscore melee info. And I'm going to add a variable. First one is going to be the name of type name. And the second one is going to be of type mesh. This would be our static mesh. Third is going to be our portrait. This would be our texture 2D. Last we're going to have is the melee transform. This would be of type transform. Save. Now we're going to go ahead and then create a data table. And this would be for our melee info. Okay. This would be dt underscore melee data. Open this up. I think I only have one melee weapon, so I'm just going to name this knife. And I will name this as search for knife. That's actually, I have a couple different knives. We're going to set this one first. And the transform, if I go back to my loadout scene, I have the transform already set up for this knife. So I'm going to select it and then I'm going to copy this. All right, I'm going to create a new folder and name this secondary weapon. Create a new structure. This should be of type s underscore sidearm info. Inside of this, again, same thing. It would be the name. We're also going to need a mesh. This would be our static mesh. And this would be object reference. We need a portrait. We're going to go texture 2D object reference. And then the last one would be sidearm transform. This would be of type transform. Save it. We can close. Now we can go back and then create a new data set. Data table, and then name this, select the S sidearm info, press OK. Name this DT underscore sidearm data. We're going to add in our first pistol. I'm just going to name this pistol here and search for a pistol. It should be a semi-automatic pistol. And then the transform, we're going to go and get this transform from here. And the last thing that we're going to do before we close off this tutorial is to set up our construction script. To build our construction script, first we need to create some variables. So we're going to start with the first variable. That will be s underscore weapon info. And this will be of type weapon info, our structure. And we're going to do the same thing for our secondary. So that'll be our sidearm. Make this sidearm info. And I'm going to go ahead and do this for perks and latals and tacticals as well. The last one will be melee info. And I'm going to make that of the type melee. It's melee info. Now, one thing that you do want to make sure is select all of these and then make it so that it is instance editable and also expose on spawn. It's very important because this is how we're going to be communicating with this blueprint. All right, so that is done. Now we're going to build our construction script. It's a good thing that we have already put everything into folders, so this makes it that much easier. So I'm going to grab my weapon main and then say set skeletal, set static mesh. Again, in your game, if you're using skeletal mesh, you would then say set skeletal mesh. And then also we're going to say set relative transform. The reason why I'm using relative transform instead of world transform is because if you were to select your weapon, and if you click on this drop down for a location, you notice that it's actually set for relative, not the world. So that's why we're using the relative transform. And we're going to grab our S weapon info and then drag off of this, and then we can say break, and then that'll break the S weapon info. Move this out of the way. And then the mesh, we're going to connect it to the mesh, and then the weapon transform, we're going to connect it to our transform. So now I'm going to copy this and then paste it here again. And now bring my secondary weapon. Set this as my targets. And here we're going to bring our sidearm info and then break it. And this would be, again, mesh and our sidearm transform. Same thing for our weapon melee. Bring this in here, copy and paste it, and connect the melee as the target for the transform and the static mesh. And then bring in our melee info and then break it. And this would give you your mesh and also the transform. The perks, we're going to actually have widgets on them, which we're not going to cover in this tutorial, in this video, but we'll be covering it in a later video. So I'm going to leave this empty for now. But for our lethals, we're going to go and do the exact same thing. So I'm going to copy this static mesh and the relative transform, bring in my tactical, connect this as my target. And then I have tacticals info, get, and then break it. Here the mesh, I'm going to set this up. And also the transform, I'm going to set this up like this. And then we have our lethal. Same thing, copy this and then paste it. Set the lethals target for both of them. Bring in our lethals info, break it. Set the mesh to mesh, and then the transform to the transform. All right, folks, that's it for this video. We have completed our setup of our datasets and also finished our construction script. This will populate the bench based on the information that we send through from the dataset. I highly recommend you to hit that subscribe button so you get notified when the next part gets released. In the next part, we're going to take a look at how we're going to set up our portraits and also progress in our UI to show those portraits in the list of all the weapons. I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next video. And if this video had helped you, or if you like this type of content, hit that like button and tell me that you like this type of content so I can continue to keep making more and more videos like this. Again, I appreciate your time here and I wish you all the best, and I'll see you on the next one.